reintroducing your SCOBY to your brew. I like to smell it for hints of the lime juice that we added earlier. If it doesn't necessarily smell so much, I add more so that I can kind of just detect an indeterministic amount. The pH, the overall pH of this brew is going to be, it's going to reduce itself to the 3 range. So to help it out upon rebrew, I think benefits it. Never use vinegar. That is in fact a product of another brew or another style of SCOBY. It's a vinegar SCOBY essentially. That will absolutely take over your initial symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast and change it so that you will just effectively be brewing vinegar from there on out. Now, that smells lightly of lime juice now. Always, always dip your hands in your sanitized water solution before you handle your cake of cultures. We're going to go over here and pick from them. Now, this discoloration is the leftover spent yeast that had not settled to the bottom of your vessel. And keeping the original cake, where it all started from. In a 1-gallon brew, this would only be sufficient to start. So, note, of course, simple displacement happening. Your SCOBY will oftentimes, as it is right now, float to the top of the brew. If not, do not worry. I've found that the SCOBY that I re-enter into whatever brew that batch that I brew, oftentimes floats if the temperature of the brew is closer to the 80-degree range, and will sink if it is somewhere in the 60s, depending on how long I let the tea cool, and the vessel ergonomics, of course. So as you can see, if you come closer, most of it is trying to float, but because of the bottleneck, it isn't necessarily splaying out appropriately. Now, that's absolutely fine. You will still have a cake that forms up at the top. What I like to do right now is test it the good old-fashioned taste test in the shot glass that I need to rinse real quick. Right. This will also help you reduce the level at the top. If you have a level of tea that is consolidated to a certain bottleneck and there's a cake that is formed and you drink off of it as it is brewing and maturing, the cake, of course, won't touch the walls once the water level is down past the bevel. Yet, still, another cake, it will spread itself out to fill the top of wherever the meniscus is of your brew. So, green tea and honey, a little tart from the lime juice, perfect. And if you come over here, we can see the temperature settle quite happily around 78 degrees. And then now we're left, I use to cap it. The front part of an undershirt or an old t-shirt will absolutely suffice. I like to use a large size tea bag for brewing that I also got from the Brewer's Haven, the same place that we acquired the sanitization solution from, where it's just a simple double fold to protect against fruit flies and whatnot. And of course with a rubber band zip. Voila. Warm, dark place for about 3 weeks is what it has taken for this to reach full maturity and tartness. Nicknamed the champagne of kombuchas, it's absolutely true to its name. The ambient temperature in your house oftentimes is sufficient enough to keep the temperature range in the 70s, which is where it is happiest. I found that it still brews and bubbles from the 68-degree range on up. If it consistently hovers around 66, 64 and below, instead of just dipping down there at nighttime and coming back up into the 70s during the daytime, your brew chances to grow other things atop of it, like mold. This is one of the reasons why I add the extra acidity, so this helps thwart this happenstance while your brew is kind of kicking off. If you rebrew and you pull your scobies out and you find that your starter fluid is somewhat less than a third of the entire vessel, this also helps. It is about pH, water being neutral, of course, so if you can bring the pH of your diluted tea mix, diluted as in not necessarily so full of the SCOBY bacterium, down to a proper pH, then it will have an easier time kicking on, so to speak, and continuing its consumption of the food and caking and making you the fantastic probiotics that we're using to repair our internal gut biome.